We continue now at the top of Daf Bezom and Bezom Meseches Yoma. This is Yoma Daf Tube. On the previous Yoma, the Gemara learned out from the Shivas Yemei Miluim. The pasuk says, "Kasher asa b'yom hazeh." Just like you have a 7-day separation by the Miluim, so too when it comes to Para Aduma, and so too when it comes to the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur, there's a 7-day separation. And the Gemara had said the reason why you know that the pasuk is talking about Para Aduma was from a Gzeira Shava of Tziva Tziva. So the Gemara now says, "V'yem what Tziva Tziva di Yom Kippurim." How do you know that Tziva is referring to Para Aduma? It says the word Tziva by Yom Kippur as well. Again, maybe the entire pasuk is only referring to the separation of Yom Kippur. Tichsiv, like the pasuk says, "Vayas kasher Tziva Hashem es Moshe." He did exactly as Hashem commanded. So the Gemara says, "Done in Tziva delifnei asiyah, mitziva delifnei asiyah." You're learning out from the word Tziva if that word is written before the word asiyah, before the word like Vayas. However, ve'ein done in Tziva de la'achar asiyah, you're not going to learn out something where it says the word Tziva after asiyah, like Yom Kippur where it says Vayas, and then it says the word Tziva. So you're not going to learn that out, mitziva de lifnei asiyah, from a situation where the word Tziva comes before the asiyah. So that's why we do not make a Gzeira Shava of Tziva Tziva to Yom Kippur. So the Gemara says, ve'im tziva to karbanos. It also uses the word tziva by karbanos. This refers to just, in general, by any public karbanos, any karbanos tzibor. We should learn out that the Kohen has to separate for 7 days. So the Gemara says, dichsiv, as it says in the pasuk, b'yom tzavos es b'nei Yisrael, talks about it says the word tziva, on the day he commanded b'nei Yisrael, and again, that's a reference to the general karbanos. Pasuk over here says, B'yom tzavos es b'nei Yisrael lahakriv es karbaneihem laHashem b'midbar Sinai. Talks about just the general bringing of karbanos. So why don't we learn out a separation by all of those? So the Gemara says, "Don in it tziva mitziva." We learn out the word tziva from another time where it says tziva. V'ein don in it tzivaso mitziva. Here it doesn't say tziva; it says b'yom tzavoso. So therefore, that's a slightly different use of the word tzavoso. So you don't learn tzavoso from tziva. So the Gemara says, "Umay nafkamina." Who cares if there's a little grammatical difference in the word? V'atana devei Rabbi Yishmael, but wasn't it taught in the yeshiva of Rabbi Yishmael? V'shav hakohen uva hakohen, that we make a limud, or we make a gzeira shava. This is talking about tzaras between the terms v'shav hakohen. That's when the kohen returns regarding the tzaras, and uva hakohen when the kohen comes regarding the tzaras. Zuhi shiva, zuhi bia. We learn out that the same halachas apply by the shiva as applied by the bia. Rashi over here says, Zui Shiva v'Zui Bia Ladun Gezeira Shava. Basically, there's a Gezeira Shava learned over here by Tzaras. Zemi Zeh, one from the other. Mashiva Choletz v'Kotza v'Tach. Just like when the Kohen returns by Shiva, he does this entire process by the Tzaras. Choletz v'Kotza v'Tach. This refers to the scraping off of the Tzaras, etc. Af Bia Choletz v'Kotza v'Tach. So too, the exact same process occurs when the Kohen comes. When it says Uva HaKohen. In any case, the point is, if you're willing to make a Gzeira Shava from Vishav HaKohen and Uva HaKohen, so certainly Tzavoso and Tziva, that should be a good Gzeira Shava. So the Gemara says, Hani milihecha deleka dedamile. If there's nothing else similar, we're willing to make a Gzeira Shava between two words that may not be exactly the same. Aval hecha dika dedamile. But if you have a word that's exactly the same, and you're going to do the word that's exactly the same. So we prefer to do tziva to Para Aduma rather than do tzavoso, which is written by karbanos in general. So the Gemara now returns again to that limud, lechaper elu ma'aseh Yom Kippurim. Again, the Gemara had said on the previous Amud that it says in the pasuk when it talks about the Yemei Miluim lechaper, and we learn out by Yom Kippur as well, there's a 7-day separation because the word lechaper is a reference to the kapara of Yom Kippur. And so the Gemara asks, "V'ema kapara de karbanos." It says the word kapara by many types of karbanos. So maybe the pasuk means by karbanos that are a kapara. By those you have to separate. By all those kinds of karbanos. How do you know it refers specifically to Yom Kippur? So the Gemara says, "Mi adinan hay kohen misrami." But you don't know which kohen is going to be serving for this particular karban. De boile prisha, that you need to separate that kohen. In other words, the point is, we pick the Kohanim by lottery. You don't know which Kohen is going to be serving, so how do you know who to separate? So we must be talking about Yom Kippur. So the Gemara says, Amri, so the Gemara responds, Alam alo. Why not? Why don't we just say the entire Beisav, meaning all of the people, all of the Kohanim who are serving that particular day, because they had shifts serving in the Beis HaMikdash. So you're right, we don't know exactly who's going to bring this particular karban. That's done by a Goro, but we know who's serving on this day. So let's separate that entire Beisav. Before their day, 7 days before their day of service, we should separate. So the Gemara says, Don in davar shekavua lozman, mi davar shekavua lozman. We learn out something where there's a set time. In other words, by the Shivas Yimei Miluim, it was a set time, and therefore we learn out to Yom Kippur, which also takes place at a set time. La'afuke karbonis dechol Yuma. That excludes karbonis that are brought dechol Yuma isnu. That excludes these other karbonis that are brought for kapara, because they happen every day. There's no set day that it happens. It happens every day that you bring karbonis. So the Gemara says, V'yema regalim. So why don't we learn out instead to regalim? By regalim as well, it also says the word kapara. So the Gemara says, Donin davar shenoig bo pam achas b'shana, mi davar hanoig pam achas b'shana. We're going to learn out, again, the Miluim, the Yemei Miluim happened one time during the year. So we'll learn out to another holiday that's once a year, which is Yom Kippur. La'afuke regalim delav pam achas b'shana ninu. That excludes the regalim. That's not one time during the year. There are 3 regalim where we bring various karbonos for kapara. So therefore, we're not going to learn out to the regalim. And so the Gemara asks, V'yema regal echad, why don't we just identify one of the 3 regalim? The pasuk means that by one of those regalim, there has to be a period of separation. Now maybe you'll say we don't know which of the 3. So that's not true. We can come up with reasons. We can maybe say it's Chag HaMatzos, because that's the first holiday the pasuk always identifies. Or maybe it's talking about Chag HaSukkos, so there are many mitzvahs on Chag HaSukkos, Lulav, Esrog, etc. So the Gemara says, you're right. Rather, Ela donin prishas shiva Yom echad, mi prishas shiva Yom echad. The reason why we identify Yom Kippur in particular is because the Shivas Yimei Miluim were 7 days of separation for one day, the Yom HaShmini, where they did the Avoda. So too, we're looking for a one-day holiday. We'll do 7 days of separation for Yom Kippur, which is a one-day holiday. This is not the case when it comes to Chag HaMatzos, Chag HaSukkos. These are more than a one-day holiday. V'ein donin prishas shiva l'shiva. You're not going to learn out to a situation of separating 7 days for a 7-day holiday, mi prishas shiva liyom echad, from a case of the Miluim, which is a separation of 7 days for a one-day holiday. So the Gemara says, V'yema shmini. Okay, what about Shmini Atzeres? Shmini Atzeres is a one-day holiday. The prishas shiva liyom echadu. That's a separation of 7 days for one day. So maybe Shmini Atzeres, there should be a separation learned out from the Shivas Yimei Miluim. So to that the Gemara says, Don in davar shein kedusha lefanav, mi davar shein kedusha lefanav. We learn out something where there's no holiness in front of it. In other words, Yom Kippur, there's no holiday, there's no Yom Tiv before Yom Kippur. So therefore, we learn out to that from the Miluim. Vein don in davar sheyesh kedusha lefanav, mi davar shein kedusha lefanav. You don't learn out to Shmini Atzeres, where there's the whole holiday of Sukkot right before Shmini Atzeres. You don't learn that out from the Shivas Yimei Miluim, again, where it's just 7 days, there's no holiday before that Shmini, that Yom Shmini, the 8th day of the Miluim. But the Gemara says, V'lav kal v'chomer. Why can't you learn that out? It should be a kal v'chomer. Hash the davar shein kedusha lefanav boy prisha. If in a situation where there's no kedusha in front of it, like the Miluim, you require separation. Davar sheyesh kedusha lefanav. If there's a situation where there is kedusha lefanav, meaning by Shmini Atzeres, lo kol sheken, you should make a kol sheken, a kal v'chomer, that there's separation. So still, Shmini Atzeres should be just as good of a limud as Yom Kippur, and maybe the pasuk means to say you separate before Shmini Atzeres. So the Gemara says, Amar of Mesharshia, or of Mesharshia says, Lo, no, hazeh ksiv, because this pasuk by the Miluim says hazeh, and we learn out kozeh, it should be identical. Don't make a kal v'chomer. It has to be exactly the same. 7-day separation for a one-day holiday, which has no kedusha in front of it. Gemara says, Rav Ashi Amar, Rav Ashi says, Mi'ika midi de ikar regel lo boy prisha. Is there any situation where the main holiday, you don't need to do any separation? So meaning, when it comes to Sukkot itself, no separation required. Tafel day boy prisha, and you think something that's tafel Shmini Atzeres, which is just a tafel to the rest of Sukkot, you think that's going to require separation? In other words, Rav Ashi is giving a different answer. He's saying, of course you're not going to learn out a separation for Shmini Atzeres, because it would not make any sense to separate for Shmini Atzeres if you're not separating for the main holiday, which is Sukkot. And we can ask this question even according to the Man Damar, who says Shmini Atzeres is its own independent holiday. Bifnei atzmohu, it's its own holiday. Hani mila le'inyan, that which we say it's its own holiday is only regarding, and we'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Gimel Amud Aleph.